All right. Good afternoon, everyone. It's another 0 to 1 session today on a Wednesday where we speak to founders as well as freelancers and people who've done amazing things. And today we have someone who's built a business starting from her passion, and that's Amy Bell. Amy is the founder of the Meat Club, and she'll be talking to us about how she built the business, obviously starting from how the idea came about, what were the challenges that she was facing in her own food supplies, and then came up with the idea and all that. So I don't want to speak for her, but that's what she's going to talk about, and then how the whole e-commerce business got built, and how she's working with the market today. Amy, welcome. Thank you very much for joining
Thank you
us.
for having me. Thank you.
All right, so maybe we can go through your journey in detail, but I would like you to give a quick intro about yourself and the Meat Club itself so that everyone knows your current business, and then we'll probably go back to your career and how it grew. But maybe
Okay,
let's do one intro first.
sure. So my name is Amy. I am the owner and founder of the Meat Club. We are an online butcher in Singapore. We are celebrating our 10 years this year, which we're very excited by. And just like you would get wine from a cellar door, the Meat Club is your equivalent for meat. So all of our product comes cut and packed from the source, and we deliver it to a warehouse in Singapore before doing a quick pick and pack operation to our customers in Singapore. We service purely B2C customers, so everyday Singapore homes, and we have a one-off offer to shop on our website as well as a subscription offering.
Thank you very much, Amy. Maybe I would like to go back to the start of your career, Amy. Obviously, you're Australian. We've mentioned that in the promotions for this event as well. And you grew
Yes.
up in Australia, and then you chose a career in law. Maybe we talk about that. Why did you choose law, and was that the passion for you at the time? Maybe we talk about that first.
Sure. So you're absolutely right. I was born and raised in the Gold Coast, Australia. I come from a family where sport actually was a very big part of our upbringing. I think you are almost the anomaly if you're not doing a lot of sport in Australia. So I think it's fair to say that both my sister and I joined a lot of our other friends in doing sport in our early days. But due to circumstances in my high school, I stopped doing, at the time, professional sport, in particular swimming and then triathlon. And I ended up being very fortunate, actually, to be studying law on the Gold Coast. So that took 5 years. It was law and international business. I ended up practicing in Brisbane and then in Sydney for several years. And during that time, I met my now husband. So he was the reason that I moved to Sydney. And while I was there, I guess just through frustration between what I had studied and what I was actually doing as a practicing lawyer, I had built two sports law divisions in the firms that I was working at. So in Brisbane and then in Sydney. And that was just through a desire to create a bit more excitement for myself, if I'm honest. Both of those industries are still thriving, which is wonderful. But we came to Singapore because my husband, who was previously at UBS in banking, was introduced to the founders of Guzman and Gomez in Australia, and he subsequently got the rights for the master franchise for Guzman and Gomez. So my journey to Singapore started off as a typical trailing spouse. I looked for work very eagerly 10 years ago. So we've actually been in Singapore for 12 years. And I initially started working as a consultant. So again, it was in sports consulting. And during that time, ironically, I was importing a vegan soft serve into Singapore. I'm not sure if anyone would recall it, but it was called Cocoa Whip, and it was being stocked in a handful of cafes in Singapore, including Sarni's. Um, that didn't do so well. I sold off part of the business and closed the other. And I then found myself not just married, but then pregnant with our first daughter. And during my pregnancy, um, I was one, made redundant, and two, I found myself in a situation where, despite having access to GYG, I was becoming a vegetarian by default, not by design. And that by that I mean to say that I couldn't find the type of quality produce that I had, I guess, taken for granted for in Australia growing up. And we were at a point in our lives, and this is, going back 12 years now, where we couldn't afford the meat that was being sold in traditional supermarkets and butchers. So, long story short, I was very heavily pregnant and going through cold storage at the time, asked Josh to accompany me and buy me an eye-fillet steak because I was not having much success at getting anything that I could actually consume. It was either at a point which it didn't taste right or it was too expensive, and there was nothing in the middle. Anyway, I almost finished my grocery shop, forgetting that Josh was there, only to realize that he was still back in the butcher aisle with his calculator out, very quickly realizing that the landed cost, and again, this is 12 years ago, but the landed cost of steak for GYG from Sydney was $11 a kilo, and the very
Mm-hmm.
same specification of steak was being sold for about $44 a kilo. Um, and as a result of that, we did some quick numbers, realized that we didn't want to have a physical retail. We already were dealing with a number of headaches with GYG. Having a physical outlet, that was Asia Square at the time, for anyone that knows of it, it's no longer there. And we also wanted to have an online presence that offered a subscription. And that meant that we could not only forecast our order volumes, but we would have guaranteed revenue from our customers moving forward.
Maybe, Amy, I'll cut you short there. We can talk about the business a bit more
Sure.
in a bit. But just on the change from a lawyer to entrepreneur, was
Mm.
that a hard kind of transition, or was it smooth, or what were your
Um,
thoughts at the time? Like, am I giving up my legal career? I mean, it's not easy to become a lawyer, right? You've got trained and worked in that
mm,
sector, and then you're kind of giving it up because you have a new passion. We have such founders in our community who are doing shifts from one segment to another, one career to another, and I guess it'll help them if you also can kind of talk
yeah, of
about the
course.
emotions that ran through at the time, and how you managed that transition.
Well, I think two things ring true from that. You probably heard me talk about my frustrations as a lawyer in the first place. So I can't sit here hand on heart saying that I loved what I did. Even when I lived and worked in Sydney, I had the good fortune of being close to Bondi Beach. And every Saturday, I would actually go down to the farmers market and sell my own brand of condiments. So I was selling pesto, hummus, tapenade, and tahini at the time. So I think one, to say that I was always looking for a side hustle. I was never particularly in love with law, and the law that I did enjoy doing, which was sports law, didn't exist here as much as it did in Australia. So I was kind of happy to make that transition away from law as we stepped into Asia. And I think I also had the benefit of seeing the transition that my husband had already made from UBS to F&B. And I think it goes without saying, for anyone that has met Josh, he is a very outward, bubbly person. And now, if I tried to put him back into a suit environment, it just wouldn't fit him. And so, seeing the type of transition he made buoyed my confidence in moving out of law into consulting in the first place.
Thank you very much. Amy, now I would like to go back to the business conversation. And you said you were looking at a business that's online.
Mm,
Maybe we talk about that a bit as well. For this kind of F&B business, most people would think of opening a shop, opening a restaurant, like offline kind of business. Obviously, there'll be online components to it, but
of
predominantly
course.
an offline business, right? And food chains are still quite traditional in that sense. People go to shops and buy. They would like to touch and see food that they're going to eat later on. So in that kind of context, why did you think of an online store from right at the beginning? I would have thought some people would do an offline shop and then move online, but you
Mm,
made that
mm.
shift right from day one. Like, how did that happen?
I think at the time, well, I don't think we had a newborn. And I was in no place of mind to be in a physical retail store at that point. We had not been in Singapore for that long, and like a very stubborn Australian, I had not yet had the benefit of a helper, which I'm very grateful for now. But I think that put a huge was a huge decision piece for us around having an online store, as well as seeing the experience that GYG had in not just dealing with landlords, but also just staffing the outlet itself. Um, Having seen that for probably 12 months at that point, we realized that it was only going to survive if we were going to have it online, because those traditional overheads that a supermarket and butcher would face are taken out of our P&L. And so our kind of call to action in our minds was, well, if we can pass on our savings to our customers, then it's a win-win for everyone. But as you rightly pointed out, it is a hard transition to educate people on or trusting us to buy the product where they haven't seen, touched, or smelt it.
And do you think the market was even ready at the time? This is, I guess, you're talking about 12 to 13 years ago, right?
Mm,
And was that a kind of a challenge in your head, like whether the market would be ready, and is would there be like a transition for customers from offline to online, and would you have to kind of push
mm.
them from offline to online, and would that include marketing budget to do so?
For definitely, we benefited, and this is pre-COVID, don't forget. We were very fortunate to have access to farmers markets in Singapore that might not be around as frequently as they were back then. So we actually made a very good point from the very beginning to be present in as many pop-ups, barbecues, farmers markets as we could. And I'm proud to say that a lot of the customers I would have met in those events are still with us now. So I think where I have benefited from, especially in my experience with GYG as well, is connecting online to offline. So making a 360 kind of wheelhouse, so to speak, so that people can come to understand and trust the offering without potentially having met me or seen the product first.
Sure, thank you. That's interesting, and I think the concept of farmers markets isn't available anymore to the same extent. I guess it happens occasionally, but
Not to
not
the
as
same
much.
extent.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but there are a lot of ways that you can still do, I guess, sampling and events. And I might be jumping ahead a bit in terms of questions, but I'm seeing, particularly even in the last, at the beginning of, probably since the beginning of this year, a real level of excitement in collaboration in Singapore,
Mhm.
which I am very excited by, because I think the only way that we could succeed out of physical events is partnerships and collaborations, which we did from the very beginning. And it was always a really hard sell, if I'm honest, to try and get brands to talk to each other about each other to their customer base, thereby elevating each other's brand's presence in the market. I feel like what was hard then is becoming commonplace now, which is super exciting for us because it's a great place to be when people want to um, work together and elevate brands at the same time.
Right, right. One other thing I wanted to check, Amy, is on your business model, I guess, is the subscription model. You did mention that you have the like one-off sale option as well, but
Mhm.
then you also have a subscription option from a e-commerce business perspective. We can see the point in that because you bring a customer and then that customer continues with you, and even
Mm.
think of ARR, like annual kind of recurring type revenue. It's not exactly SaaS, but it has that kind of relevance in that sense, so that you bring a customer works with you for a long time. So I can see the business side of it, but I'm also curious to understand how you brought in a subscription model to a food business, and we are
Mm.
talking about meat here mostly, and are customers ready for that, and what were your thoughts at the time about a subscription model, the logic behind that? Maybe if you can talk to us about the model itself.
Sure. So you're right. You can join and make a purchase on the Meat Club website as a one-off purchase. And with that, you will get great pricing and the full range of products that we offer. I think where the bread and butter for our business sits is in that subscription model. So you're right to point out the recurring revenue that we can get from customers that have basically a click, set, and forget model. So for busy mums, executives, gym goers, they can just be rest assured that a set of quality, clean proteins are being delivered to the house on a cadence that suits them, be it weekly, fortnightly, or monthly. Um, so the benefit to the business is the forecasting of order volumes. The benefit to the customer is having the click, set, and forget delivery model. I think the other point that is often overlooked is that we can pass on savings to our customers by bulk purchasing these items from our suppliers. So we have on our subscription a tiered discount policy where once your basket reaches a certain value, you can unlock up to 15% off. So it's a scaling system where it starts at 5, then it jumps to 10, then it jumps to 15. And that means that people can obviously add more products to their basket if they like, to unlock the 15%, as well as a loyalty program which is open to anyone. And there is at this point in time, $140 worth of value to the customer. So you get a chopping knife, sorry, a carving knife, like a chef's knife, a chopping board. You get some hats and a $30 voucher, and that takes you all until 8 deliveries to complete. And we're actively looking to add to that. I think finally, the one piece that is overlooked with our subscription model, as I said at the beginning, is it's as if you're at the cellar door, or in this case, the farm gate. Having been to a lot of these processes, and understanding the supply chain, one benefit that I can confidently say is that we reduce, and you would be surprised by this, because it's a question that comes up quite regularly when we have a single pack, retail ready, 400 grams of chicken breast or 200-gram, I feel it ready to go. That's a single use plastic, which I don't deny. But if you think about the steps during the supply chain between Australia and Singapore, we're having that product packed at a retail ready packaging. So it's all vacuum sealed from Australia all the way through Singapore until it reaches your door. It's not opened, it's not cut, it's not handled, it's not frozen and defrosted in any way. So that same packaging has remained in place the whole time. By contrast, a traditional supermarket or butcher might bring up, say it's a whole carcass or a half a carcass, and I'm I'm sorry to use that terminology, but it is what it is. That carcass needs to be frozen and cut down, and then cut down again, and cut down into
Right,
in
right.
potentially multiple processes until it eventually is packaged into an eye fillet or chicken breast form.
Mm,
And so I think from an environmental point of view, again, it sounds counterintuitive. The subscription model allows us to make sure that we're only getting what we need when we need it. It's saving on the plastic for the environment, and it's coming
mhm.
directly from our customer, from our supplier to our customers.
Right. Very good. Thank you very much. Maybe there's a question that we could take at this point in time, Amy. There are three questions, but I'll
Sure.
pick Evelina's question because I think it's relevant at the point.
Okay.
Um, what kind of challenges did you encounter when opening the Meat Club online? I'm especially interested in the subscription plan. I think we
Mhm.
touched on that. The next part is what would you do better or differently if you were to start all over again?
Okay. Hi, Evelina. Thank you for the question. Um, so things I would do differently if I started all over again. Ooh, I think there would be a lot, but I don't think I'd be willing to change anything because I wouldn't be where I'm sitting now. In terms of what I would have, could you read the first part of the question out for me again?
Yes.
Is there,
What kind of challenges did you encounter when opening the Meat Club
okay, that's
online?
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
especially interested in the subscription plan bit.
okay. Well, I think I should add that I don't have any online marketing experience or background. And I think having launched an online e-commerce store with no understanding of those challenges was a challenge in itself. So learning everything from um, SEO and SEM, understanding what it meant to rank in Google organically versus paid advertising, just to drive that point home. Having product images, having the right um, titles of our products. The list of challenges is longer than you can imagine. With the subscription plan, I think the biggest challenge was actually in just convincing the Singapore market that a subscription was worthwhile. And so part of my I guess pitch now is if we're all willing to, pay for a Netflix subscription or a Spotify subscription, which is and on an entertainment level, then why would we not subscribe to our own health? Why would we not look at
Mm,
what's on our plate, what we are eating and consuming on a day-to-day basis? Um, and how can we improve our health by subscribing to something that can benefit us all? um, so in terms of what I would do differently, I think I would like to say that I wouldn't change a thing because I've learned so much along the way, even with Cocoa Whip, the vegan soft serve business. It was like in a mini MBA. And that was not online. That was a matter of import only, and then distribution here locally. So I think for me, yeah, I don't think I'd change a thing.
sure. Thank you very much, Amy, and thanks for the question, Evelina. We have four more questions to answer, but I'll probably do our flow and come back to these questions as well. Ritika, we've got your two questions, but I'll pick them up as we go. I wanted to touch on the brand itself, Amy. It's the Meat Club. Maybe you
Mm,
can talk to us about how you created the brand and what you do in terms of brand building now, and maybe the build
mm.
up to it as well. We will talk about marketing next, but let's touch on the brand first.
The brand itself, I think, when we first started, we had the opportunity to bring in some very big brands from Australia, brands that may well be known now, like Cape Grim Beef, Lily Dale Chicken. These are household names in Australia, but they weren't household names in Singapore going back 12 years. And so, what we came to understand is that we could bring those brands in, but we were going to be paying for the brand as well as the product. So, we knew that if we could create our own brand and we were just paying for the product, despite and have that same quality and provenance story, then we were already one step ahead. In terms of brand building, I think a lot of that started with the farmers markets, like I said, having that face-to-face experience with our initial customers. I also did a lot of flyer running with my two young daughters, so dropping flyers into people's homes, which you would be surprised did quite well. And I think now I just work, I wouldn't say tirelessly, but we do work very hard at bringing in the right people to speak about our brand on our behalf, because there's only so many people I can reach. So through those collaborations and partnerships that I mentioned, I heavily rely on some of those people having met me and understood where our product is coming from to act as a bit of a mouthpiece for us as well. So through word of mouth, there is nothing more powerful than a referral from a friend, because it cuts through all the marketing noise. And that's something that, fast forward to today, I'm really focused on, because I personally am really sick of chasing people around the internet. I think during COVID, that was a huge reset for a lot of brands. For me, I probably would be happy to admit in myself that I became quite lazy at being physically present anymore. Everything was online, and we were spending money on Google, and we were spending money on Meta, and the conversions were not the spend was not speaking for the conversions, and the conversions were not speaking for the spend. So I really started to reinvigorate um, these, I guess, face-to-face events, be it a tasting session, being an event like this, a speaking event like this, to really stop people chasing people around the internet and having a connection again. And with that comes brand building, because you can come to understand the business model. That was very long. Sorry.
That's all right. And I like the
I
fact
hope
that you
I addressed
mentioned.
the question.
No, that's okay. And you mentioned that you were doing flyer droppings yourself,
Oh yeah.
and I think it resonates with lots of the founders
I
because you
still
got to
do
do
it.
anything, right? Yeah, just do it.
I still do it. I still send handwritten letters to our customers that join us for the first time or shop with us for the first time, that have a basket over $100. Now, why 100? It's purely because most baskets are on average 176, so I capture everyone anyway. And free shipping is for orders over $100. So
Right.
I think it is those little touch points that go a long way, because
Hmm.
in this day and age, like, you can be a faceless brand. And what we're trying to do is bring a level of, yeah, a human element to an otherwise online brand.
Okay. I would like to get into the marketing area. I know we've touched
Mm,
a bit with branding. Maybe we start with the target market. Amy, you mentioned your challenge was finding good quality, affordable meat and possibly from Australia, and you're Australian, and is that kind of the market, like the Australian expat community in Singapore, or is it broader? Maybe if you can talk to us about the target market as well.
of course. Initially, our traditional customer was very much an expat centric family. um, I would say a split between 60 to 40 in favor of expats, but now we're very much 50-50. And I think and there's a number of reasons for that. One, it's time in the market, I think, or I'd like to hope that we're a bit more well known now than what we were back then. Um, And I also think, coinciding with the excitement that I've had since this year with businesses starting to collaborate, you can see communities and running clubs starting around, beats and beans. So there's, a community morning run. People are getting up early, they're exercising more regularly. And I think with that transition, people are starting to really look again at what are they purchasing and what are they actually consuming, because unfortunately, not all meat is created equally. And if we are looking at spending pound for pound, or dollar for dollar, I should say, um, where are we better to spend our money? And I think that Singaporeans are really looking at that with razor focus now. And I'm excited that we can be part of that journey so that we can help them make an informed decision on what they're putting into their bodies.
Sure. We'll pick Ritika's question. I think it's kind of related to the area that we're discussing now. Ritika is asking, were there any GTM, go-to-market strategies you picked from other categories still in D2C slash e-commerce space? If there were, what were they?
So, what were the other go-to-market strategies?
Strategies that you picked from other categories still in D2C, direct to consumer slash e-commerce space?
That's a good one. I'm trying to think. We used to run a program called, or two programs that are no longer with us. One is called Free Mints for Life. So when you joined as a subscriber, you could get a pack of 300-gram grass-fed beef lean mints with every order. That was one that we borrowed from a business in America. Another one that we had was oh gosh, it was called Spend and Save, which is actually from a retailer in Australia called Country Road. So I think at the time they had a tiered system where it was, spend 150, get $50 off, so on and so forth. And so we offered on the subscription model $50 off for a commitment to 3 subscription deliveries. We've done away with both of those because we found that we needed a lot of customers will make their first order on the subscription, and then that's the transition between their first order and their second subscription delivery is the biggest one for us to keep them there. And so having the rewards program that I mentioned earlier, at the moment it's $140, has been really important to us. We work now, we're a Shopify online store, but we do have a subscription backend called Loop. And they've been a wonderful partner for us because they're constantly coming up with new ways in which we can not just engage our customers, but retain them and reward them. So yeah, that they would be two strategies that we've used or adapted from other businesses. I wish I could say there's been more, but
Right.
you would be surprised at how hard it is to execute, let alone then roll back a campaign. So you've got to be very careful that whatever you're going to do, you want to make sure that it's continuous, and that you don't want to roll it back like we have.
Um, there are quite a few questions coming through the Q&A channel, but we'll go through as much as possible. But
So,
Ritika has a couple of follow-up questions as well. Ritika, if you're comfortable, I can actually allow you to speak, and you can actually ask them yourself, so that you can explain what the reasons you want to know a bit more on these as well. So
okay.
yeah, allow it. Oops.
Hi, Amy. Thank you for your answer. It is quite helpful. So, I'm a first time founder and I'm still navigating the journey through things. And e-commerce
Fantastic.
is a big space. And there's so much happening. So, it's always interesting to know what's working, what's not working. You mentioned you picked up two strategies from US based companies. What made you specifically pick those? Like, did you see some similarity in terms of what they're doing, which was like, oh, there's a pain point match, or how the consumers are behaving is matching, which is why you thought maybe that can be translated? Or how did you actually go from spotting something to actually executing it for your own product or your own brand?
Good question. Thank you so much for the chance. The first one would be, how did I identify the companies? I think we're constantly looking out for other businesses that are doing something similar to us that we admire. In this case, the company in America was an online butcher. They had a very similar product offering to us. And at the time, I think they were going through a cap raise. So there was a lot of information about them on the market, including some of their revenue models. And the program that they offered, being that free product for life, free product for your subscription, was something that we realized at the time we could very quickly add on our back end through an evergreen code, evergreen meaning lasting forever. So that was an easy one to do. The one in Australia, Country Road, to be honest, I just used to shop there a lot, and it used to convert me a lot. I think a lot of the times um, there is a lot that goes, your gut can speak for a lot in terms of what business decisions you might make along the way, what feels right and what feels wrong. So that was the one for Australia. What was the second part of that question?
It was about, did you see some similarity in terms of pain point and things with your consumers also, which made you resonate with that strategy?
Yeah, I think a lot of the time, the free Mints for Life in particular, if I'm honest, was our way of also rewarding our customers in a meaningful way by saying, thank you. I know that it's mints, but there is a cost to that. And it is it was for life, meaning that as long as you kept your subscription with us, you would benefit from that free product. So it was our kind of own way of having a loyalty program without having a loyalty program officially in place. Now that we have a loyalty program in place, we've done away with it.
Makes sense. I wouldn't take too long and I'd let the discussion with other things go, but just one last question from my side.
Sure.
You also happened to mention about how within e-commerce space, it's a lot about learning the skills.
Yes.
How you learned in the course of your journey and you were not familiar with it. So was it mostly A/B testing, which led you to learn this, or were you doing more beyond that also to pick up on these skills? Because it's such a fast changing space and there's so much new things coming in every day. So how did you manage to keep up with that pace?
Through willpower and sheer grit. I'm sorry to say. To be fair, there was a number of times where I thought to myself, there has to be a course out there that I can do to get up to speed. But in reality, things, like you said, were moving so quickly. I didn't have time to look for the course. I just had to go out and do it. And in all honesty, I failed so many times. I failed and failed and failed and failed and failed. And I think the only difference between not every difference. The only thing that I can say that I did was that I didn't give up. And so I kept trying. I think at this point in our future as well, with the advent of AI, it's accelerating. So whereas I may have been on the start of the hockey stick in terms of the e-commerce learning journey, AI is taking that exponentially and we don't know where it's going. So again, there's no one place or central source of truth where you can kind of have this information downloaded. Unfortunately, it's just been learning through doing, and doing again and again and again. I think that would be my one piece of advice. My second one, which doesn't directly answer your question but might help, is that I am not the smartest person in the room. And I think as soon as you realize that in yourself, that I have a certain expertise. I know for me, it's business development. In my business, that is basically my role, bringing people together, collaborating, building partnerships, building out an ecosystem of or a community of, if you say, to kind of build the brand and elevate our brand along with other brands. But when I'm not the smartest person in the room, that means that I have an opportunity to get people that are a lot smarter in their particular field, be it an SEO whiz or an SEM whiz or a designer, that can churn something out much faster than I can even articulate what my idea is. So I think if you can bring in people that can help like bolt into your system, um, that would be my advice. That sounds expensive, but I can promise you it's not. Right now, and we continue to engage with freelancers, for example. We will put advertisements up for project-based work. And you'd be really surprised by the amount of talent and availability of people that are willing to kind of help you pitch for the work, and have a really, really good work ethic as a result.
That makes sense. Thank you so much.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Ritika. Thank you, Ritika. It's great to have questions coming from the audience. We have a number of other questions as well, but it's also great to have you verbally ask these questions. Ritika, thank you very much, and thank you, Amy, for taking all those questions.
Welcome.
I'll take one more question from the Q&A thread as well. How do you create loyalty in a product category that's traditionally price driven, like meat?
Oh, I love that. I love that. How do I create loyalty? I create loyalty. I think there is. Sorry, I'm just trying to reframe it. I think the product that we are selling is in a price-driven category. You're absolutely right. Meat is going to be the first product in your shopping aisle to go on discount because it is shelf life unstable. It has a certain expiry, so it has to move. That's the issue that a lot of traditional butchers and supermarkets face. Thankfully, we don't face that because all of our product is spiral frozen in Australia. So we don't get into ourselves into a situation where our product is actually expiring and we need to put it on sale. Now, that means that we're not always on sale or discount or do flash sales like the 9.9s and the 11.11s. So the loyalty point comes back to provenance and quality and knowing what it is that you're consuming. I think as an Australian, like I mentioned, you really take for granted just how lucky you are with the access to quality products. Singapore having everything imported, it's much harder to understand where is this steak coming from? Is it coming from and I'm just going to say countries' names without much meaning behind it, but is it coming from America? Is it coming from Argentina? Is it coming from Indonesia? Is it coming from New Zealand? All of these places have different quality controls. They have different ways of rearing their animals. And I think as Singaporeans start to educate themselves on the impact of the food that they eat, not just on their physical well-being, but their mental well-being, that creates loyalty in itself because our products, I like to think, speak for themselves. We have, grass-fed beef that comes out of Queensland, and that product is a business that is owned and operated by one family. That one family own the grasslands, they own the cattle, they own the grain lot feed. sorry, I've mispronounced that. The feedlot, if the cattle are finishing on a grain-fed diet, they own the processor, they own the trucks. And so you can be really well assured to know exactly where your product is coming from. So the loyalty is in the product, not in the price for us.
Another question is also around trust. How do you build trust in a category where quality is everything and you
Mm.
can't sample test before buying?
I think it's the storytelling element of what I just mentioned. And I think building trust comes with time. And I don't expect people to, hear of us and like straight away being like, oh no, I'll like shop with them right away. I think there is an extreme amount of brand loyalty with the members that we do have. And I have faith that they will be able to speak highly enough of us that they will then, refer their network on and so on and so forth. It's a bit of a ripple effect. But that storytelling piece is something that I'm passionate about, because if we all race to the bottom on price, the only people that are being harmed in that is actually the consumer. And I'm not saying that in a monetary way, I'm saying that from a health perspective. Antibiotics and hormones, for example, that you're consuming without knowing it is where I'm leaning towards. Animals that have potentially consumed GMO feed, which may or may not have it be an issue for some people, but it is for others. Animals that have been in rearing conditions that you wouldn't want to see or hear about. So I think the loyalty piece comes back to the storytelling, comes back to the product. I hope I've answered that well enough. I feel like I've rambled.
I think that's good. Maybe we spoke about types of product you have,
Mm,
grass-fed beef and all that. Maybe it's good to tell our audience about the products a bit, I guess, what type of products you have in terms of this meat, so that they get to know. And as you said,
yeah,
like this is also that building connection, right? You're talking to people
sure.
who might be interested in actually buying from you as well.
Yeah, I mean, the beef one is an easy one that we've already gone through. So I think in terms of timelines, the beef and the lamb were the first SKUs that we got onto our website. That was the craving I had through my first pregnancy. We then through my second pregnancy was craving chicken. And I'm sorry to say that I wasn't consuming chicken prior to then either. For one reason or another, I just didn't like the taste and texture of it here. And the chicken was our kind of next foray into the protein market. You would not believe how hard that was. I won't go into it because it is a bit of a touchy one with the economics of different countries. Least to say that that was a really, really hard battle to get it into the country, and I'm very pleased that we have. Since then, you'll find a number of other Australian chicken and even New Zealand brands that are in the market. After that, we started importing fish. So we've got a range of white line caught fish out of New Zealand. And the reason it's line caught is that traditional fish is caught through a system where a whole net is cast behind a large ship. And it's not just picking up your snapper, it's picking up or your prawn or your salmon wouldn't be caught like that, but it's taking everything with it, including other sea life like turtles, like dolphins, baby sharks. And these things are all caught in the net during that trawling process. A line caught fish captures just the fish that they're designed to catch and nothing else. Our salmon proudly comes out of New Zealand. There was quite a lot of noise in Australia and the salmon industry in Tasmania, if you went across it, but it was around the fishing pens in Australia, and the fact that the water was not churning enough to get rid of the excretion of the animals in the water. So a lot of the salmon providers in Australia have moved their pens out into the ocean, quite rightly. We get ours out of New Zealand. Where does that leave us? Prior to COVID, we actually had a tagline in the business called the Conscious Carnivore. And the Conscious Carnivore came about because I myself don't actually eat a lot of meat. I do eat it regularly, but probably not as often as you would think as the owner of a meat company. And so I had my own kind of self-crisis because I wanted to advocate for my business, but also was very mindful of the message we were sending to the market. And so the Conscious Carnivore tagline, which I'm still proud of, is meant to encourage people to look at what's on their plate and appreciate where it's come from, one meal at a time. Now, that does sound a bit airy and corny, I agree, but it's really a moment just to pause and reflect where it's come from, how it's got there, in this case, by sea, by air. But the Conscious Carnivore piece made me start creating a line of burger patties. So we now have a line of burger patties and falafels. You also see some traditional, well, it's not traditional actually, but the more well-known, not fake meats, but meat alternatives on our website as well, to cater to people that might enjoy that product as well. So it's been an evolution. Every time that we've brought something along, there's been a big QA process with myself and the team to make sure that the products fit our mantra and our own, guidelines around sustainability, animal welfare, etc.
Sure. Thank you, Amy. We have 7 minutes to go, so we'll probably
Okay,
pick the last few questions. One
sure.
thing I wanted to ask was about your team. You did mention about
Mm,
this the team earlier. You kind of get skills that you kind of want in the team. Maybe it's a good time to talk about the team. Like, who do you have? What skills are required to run this kind of e-commerce business? That might be
okay, yeah,
useful
of
for the
course.
audience.
Of course. So up until before COVID, it was myself and one other guy. So there was two people in the business. We quickly hired a third. So the roles were CEO, me being marketing and business development, and then an operations person that would handle the logistics of the product coming into the country and going to our customers' doors. We had three up until about COVID, where we had a fourth team member join us. And that person was initially, actually still with us today. So often joined as a food photographer initially, and then joined me in our marketing department. He has now taken over the role of operations. So for the longest time, it was the three of us. So Brad being our CEO, Alf and our operations manager, me in marketing. And while I would love to say that everyone stayed in their own kind of like lines of not communication, but task list, we all tend to help each other. We all tend to support and cross over into those business divisions. We then got a full-time employee in the Philippines to support more of the marketing efforts that we were doing. And Rika still sits with us. And then more recently, so counting all of that stuff on a full-time basis, that's 4 including me. And we've got another team member that's joined us to help drive some of our marketing messaging, because I know I'm really, really guilty of doing 1,000 things at 90%, where I probably should be doing 10 things at 110%. So this person, Ishan, has come on board to really focus my attention on what's important. Like I said at the beginning, we've got our 10-year anniversary this year, so we're planning some fun things around that. We are reluctantly launching a podcast, but I think it's timely because a lot of people need to understand what's on their plate. That's actually the title of the podcast. We have a number of other ambassadors that are working with us now. Diana Chan, who won the Australian Master Chef series. Naz, who is a gym owner, and another girl that happens to be a fellow Australian lawyer. But to answer your question, it's 5 core team members with a 3PL. So our warehousing and logistics team sits separately outside of the Meat Club PTE Ltd. We do most of our own accounts, but we do have an accounting firm we work with, and they do all of our financial statements for us and filing. Who else do we use? Well, obviously, then, on the outside of that, I count all of our suppliers as really still part of our business model. It's just that they don't fall within the Meat Club itself as a paid employee, I guess. So within our ecosystem, there's all these other beautiful businesses that are out there supporting us. The one thing I will add, and so I don't know where the timer is, I can't see it, but Ratika, just one more point for you, and hopefully for anyone else that is on this call, is ask the questions and have the meetings, go out for coffee, and just speak to as many people as you can. You would be so surprised, and including me, I'm happy to. People that will come out of the woodwork for offering advice, giving you an opinion, and just having meaningful discussions about how you could potentially do things. So in that way, if you can find a mentor, somebody that you can bounce ideas off that can stay in your life for longer than just that coffee, and you can continue to bounce ideas off with them, I think that's also a really smart way to try and level yourself up into wherever it is that you're looking to go.
Sure. Thank you, Amy. We have a couple of minutes left. I'll
Okay.
share my screen and show your website as well.
Oh,
So anyone who
okay.
wants to visit your website
Okay.
and browse through, that will be useful for them. So your website's up there. It's
Don't mind me eating
meatclub.com.sg.
Sorry.
Can you see as well?
Of course.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'll have the website up here. As I asked the last question, Amy, thank you very much for all these answers so far. Amazing
Not at all.
answers and amazing information and knowledge, insights for our audience. But I also wanted to ask a final question on how you balance all this, right? You're a wife, you are a mother to two, and you also mentioned you have a puppy now as well,
Yes.
and then you have this business running as well, and then your husband's running a pretty big business in Singapore as well. So a busy family with kids and a pet. So how do you manage all this?
I think the answer to that is I don't do it alone. I have a wonderful helper who I credit to helping me every day. I'm also very fortunate that my 2 children, my 2 girls, are very independent. They're 7 and 9, and so they are increasingly independent. They could ride to school and home now, which they couldn't do much earlier on. And I think if without the help of a full-time carer in our household, that none of this would be possible, if I'm honest, because something would have given between either my work or my marriage. I have to say as well that in the very, very beginning, there was no such thing as balance. And people that think that might be possible is, at least in our situation, it just wasn't possible. Josh was working on the Meat Club. I was working in GYG. There was a lot going on. And so it wasn't a pretty picture a lot of the times. I'm very proud of what we've built. I'm very proud that we're still here. But I don't have like a like a one piece of pearl wisdom. It's really just failing and getting up again, time and time again, unfortunately. And I wouldn't change that, because that type of failure just brings about a happiness when there is success that you can't put any monetary value on. Being able to sit here and having built something big or small is very rewarding. So again, I probably didn't answer your question very well, but it's a busy house. It's a busy life. I'm super grateful for the support that I have. And I also think it comes down to our parenting style. I'm very involved. I'm very often dropping off and picking up my kids. Wasn't the case in the early days because we would work overnight if we had to. That was just kind of what we did. But that's a whole nother conversation because COVID was a huge learning curve for us. We would never come home, and that really obviously forced everyone to reassess their lives. And I'm so grateful for that lesson. So it's a juggle, and if it means having an hour off with your kids after picking them up from school or ECAs, whatever it might be, an hour with them and then working again until late at night, well, then that's just kind of is what it is. And that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, and then that's startup life, right?
Embrace the chaos.
Exactly. And you got to be comfortable with doing that.
You got to be comfortable with it. Yeah, you got to make friends with chaos for sure.
Yes. All right, Amy, thank you so much. I think
Thank you
so
so
much
much.
knowledge, so much insights, so much experiences shared with our audience. Thank you so much
Pleasure.
for the session. And thank you everyone for joining as well. So many questions. There were a few questions that I couldn't get to as well, but I think we were touched on them in various ways. So thank you for everyone for joining. And then we'll be putting up the recording on our YouTube channel in a day or so as well.
Okay.
And then this event will happen again next Wednesday. And there's another one happening on Thursdays as well. Tomorrow's event is around community building. That is actually related to what Amy spoke about as well, because community does help in building a brand and also building awareness and strategic value in that. So we are talking to two experts on community building for startups as well. That's tomorrow. And we'll see you again tomorrow and then again next Wednesday. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Amy, again.
Thank you for having me.
That's all right. Bye. She said it. Okay.